Drank your milk, kids. Them joints won't hurt as bad when you're older. I wish that were even half true. It turns out there's no amount of milk that you can drink that won't make your ankle hurt when you completely bust-a-rooney that guy playing volleyball. Welcome back to Privy. Privy is a podcast about bathrooms, recorded from my home bathroom. I'm your host, Hunter Hoover, and I love bathrooms. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much again for being here, and thank you for joining us for our second episode in the month of June. Famously, and around this country, I'm sure you've seen, June is National Dairy Month. And we are looking at all things dairy, but specifically how the dairy industry and the things that go on there interact with our bathroom space. There's a lot more overlap than you think. Last week, we looked at the marketing and byproduct of the dairy industry. Namely, we looked at a National Dairy Month across history as concept, where it came from, why it exists. Its purpose is, in short, to sell milk and other delicious dairy products. But to sell milk, sometimes we have to play politics. We have to put some money on the line and kind of create our own lobby of organizations that fight for certain aspects of understanding and advocacy related to dairy. It's kind of a weird thing. Those dairy products are made literally by cows and other livestock. In the process of producing all that delicious dairy, dairy's good stuff. It's real good. It's real strong. I remember growing up and being, hearing the Got Milk campaigns, and they always had, I think it was always Michael Jordan, and he always had a milk mustache. There was a lady that they always had on everything too. I don't know. She's like an astronaut or something. I don't know. But, and it was always like, got milk. And it's like, yeah, dude, my school cafeteria where you are staring down from on high gave it to me. Thank you, sir. But there's another byproduct that's produced besides this milk. Cow crap, poop, manure, if you will. What they do with all of that in the past and what sort of things they do to get rid of it nowadays with farms and dairies with hundreds, if not thousands of cows, is a fascinating piece of technological advancement. With these things answered, we rang in National Dairy Month last time. But there is another bathroom-related concern we need to discuss when we begin talking about dairy. While many of us, guilty as charged, get psyched when we start talking about dairy, mostly because when we're talking about it, we're thinking about eating some of them good dairy snacks. There's another group of people to whom the notion of snacking down a cheese stick or a large milkshake isn't as appealing. These I have titled the dairy impaired, or as it is usually stated, the lactose intolerant. That begs a couple of specific National Dairy Month questions. What the heck is even lactose? And how do we get lactose in the butter? And why are some of these people intolerant to it? We're asking the big questions here. Before we continue, we gotta grip and rip a little ollie pop right here. This is maybe a little hoovy sniff check out of the gate. Ooh, that's smelling strong raspberry sherbet. So, that's a strong offering. It's a strong offering from Olipop. In short, the easiest way when we ask what is even lactose is to think of it as milk sugar. Technically, that is literally what the words translate to. Lac, deriving from the Latin lactis, and os, which is used to name and denounce sugar and sugar compounds, dextrose, sucralose, the such. This is milk sugar, lactose. Lactose is generally made up of two compounds, saccharides called galactose. It's kind of like galaxy sugar based on the naming convention they used for lactose. So you have galactose and glucose, which is like the most common sugar compound. And these two, galactose and glucose, are what lactose is made of. Lactose is almost always found as a liquid, as it comes usually dissolved in water in its natural state, milk. That water with lactose dissolved into it is kind of technically, with various levels of fat content added, milk. While most mammals have lactose in their milk, not all do. Notably, fun animal science fact, friends. Kids, gather round. It's time for another hunty-hoovy fun animal science fact brought to you by Privy. Bears and the milk that they produce contains no lactose. Them dirty, rotten bears. You know, bears got this reputation for being sweet. I have a little honey bear at work that I squish honey out of into my tea. A little honey bear. But it turns out when it comes to the bear milk, yeah, not a lot of sugar, not a lot of sweet going on there. The milk content of monkeys is almost double that of the average cow. The normal concentration of lactose being around 5%. I believe when you drink whole milk, it just means that it has the full amount of milk fat, lactose content in it. You might be hearing all this and thinking, doesn't Hunter, by now, usually regularly tell us that he is not a scientist? Isn't he going in too deep on the science of all of this here so quickly right out of the gate? We get cows got udders, but why are we talking about the sugar in them udders? Sugar udders. Huh. I don't think the cows would appreciate that. Only cows are not going to appreciate that comment, that's for sure. It's true. I'm not a scientist. Never claimed to be. Not sure half of it's real. And second, as we will see when we get deeper into our lactose journey, we're just at the beginning, of course. These details will be very, very important as we begin to approach Privy's domain of expertise. But before we arrive in the bathroom with lactose, we have to understand it a bit more. It would serve to further describe lactose and help us to have a better understanding of this milk sugar. It should also be noted, lactose on the spectrum silver, it's a spectrum. Speaking of spectrums, happy June. Lactose is one of the less sweet sugars with a sweetness of 0.2 to 0.4. Not sure what that means. Yeah, I cannot deny. I don't know what 0.4 of what. Where fructose is on the higher end at 1.3. Sucrose, which is a common sweetener, I wonder if that's what's in Olipop. Let's find out together. Marshmallow root? Bruh. Stevia? Bro, I don't even know. Huh. There's a lot of weird stuff in there. A lot of plant-based things. I think it's supposed to be healthy. Or a healthy option. I'm not sure. But how do we learn all this? The milk's coming out of the cow, but how did we figure out what the milk was made of? Now, obviously, you taste it and you can go, there's a little bit of sweet to it. Kind of. A little milk sweet. But did we just start slurping on the milk and start assessing these traits? How did we come to these conclusions about what milk is consisting of? The history of lactose starts where most of my favorite cheesy things begin, in Italy. In 1576, in the city of Bologna, I have a suspicion it isn't pronounced like the oversized sliced hot dog meats that are flowing around these great United States. What I do know is that the word spelled Bologna is pronounced Bologna, and it has a first name. It's Oscar, dang it. That's its name. Never forget it. But this Bologna is a large town in the middle of Italy, and in Bologna, an Italian anatomist, Fabrizio Bartoletti. It's a great name, Fabrizio. I wonder, you think Fabrizio? What are the odds? What if they did bologna scented Febreze? Really hose that G. Fabrizio Bartoletti was born in Bologna in 1576. There, he went on to study at the university in the city, and he studied philosophy and medicine. He earned his doctorate degree at the age of 27. He's ahead of some. You know, I'm going to step up. Step to it. He earned his doctorate degree at the age of 27 from the university in Bologna and went on to be a professor of surgery and anatomy at the school. During his time working on his doctorate and teaching, he did the research and produced his first main work titled Antiditorium Chimico Dogmaticum. Nice. I'm fluent. You know what I'm saying. You know the vibes are at. In it, he examined ideals and concepts related to alchemy, of all things. He's trying to turn freaking iron pans into gold out here. In his work, Antidoterium Chimico Dogmaticum, he sought to see how those ideals of alchemy are related to the planets. Much like Paracelsus did in his mercury salt theory. I need to do something cool. I need to go do something cool. Because there was enough foreign words and languages and strange Italian names, and the word bologna was in there, and I said antididatorium too many times. I didn't understand. People are going to start thinking that I'm a freaking nerd. And I'm not. Nerds hate Pokemon. Wait. Yeah. Nerds hate Pokemon. Nerds do not play Fortnite. Nerds can't stand reading. Nerds never listen to podcasts. That's stuff that only cool, hip jocks and street gangsters and just hardcore, tough dudes do. It's just facts. So yeah, in these experiments and testing, he isolated lactose from milk in 1615, and he called the compound that he had separated out manna saeus nitrum cerilactis. Oh, the Latin is strong with this one. Manna sau nitrum cerilactis. He put this in his encyclopedia called Hermetico Dogmatica. You know what I'm saying? This Latin phrase, manna seu nitrum cerilactis, roughly translates into the manna of salt or whey, or salt of whey. Nerds, hold on. Manna isn't magic, as you've come to believe it from playing all of your strange gathering card games. Rather, it refers to something sweet, a compound that is sweet to the taste. Manna. It's interesting that sweet substance of old has come to be synonymous with magic. In the Old Testament, manna literally meant what is it? And it was a sweet, almost like coriander thing that God gave the Israelites from out of heaven. What is it? Manna. It's sweet. Fabrizio moved to Mantua, where he consequently contracted the plague, and on leaving Mantua for home in Bologna, died. He never made it back. What Fabrizio Bartoletti isolated and began into understanding, others ran with. Lodovico Testi wrote a book of testimonials and shared of the power of mild sugar. In these testimonials, milk sugar, or lactose, as we've discussed, is credited with curing and alleviating arthritis. Drank your milk, kids. Them joints won't hurt as bad when you're older. I wish that were even half true. It turns out there's no amount of milk that you can drink that won't make your ankle hurt when you completely bust-a-rooney that guy playing volleyball. Turns out, all them got milk cartons that I slurped down in grade school, ankle still hurts, brother. Here we are. Lactose didn't have its name all this time, though. It wasn't called lactose. It was isolated in 1617, but it wasn't until 1843, over 200 years later, that this chemical or compound was named by Jean-Baptiste André Dumas, a French chemist. He called it galactose. Lactose. It was shortened in 1860 by Marceline Barthelot, where he transferred the name to the compound, lactose. But all that's fine and good. Now we know how we figured out what lactose is. But how does this get us to the bathroom? The trouble that lactose gives people in the bathroom is actually not lactose's fault. Rather, most of the time, the problem is the result of a lack of something called lactase. Oh gosh, Lord help us. It's a classic longitude-latitude problem, and I'm going to get them confused. My grade school teachers would be pissed to know that I forgot the longitude and fatitude, latitude, because I can't remember which way is long and which way is fat on a globe. I'm sorry. It's tough out here. It's tough out here for these shrimps. Most of the time, though, a person experiences this trouble because of a lack of lactase. Lactase is a digestive enzyme produced within the human body that is crucial and needed to break down milk and other dairy products, specifically the lactose sugars that exist in those dairy products. And what it does, this lactase enzyme, is it breaks down those lactose sugars into those two component parts, galactose and glucose. Told you our friends would be important to discuss. Those two sugars, when isolated and separated, can be easily absorbed into the bloodstream through the animal or human's intestines. It's called digesting, and it gets you to the bathroom. But you know what I don't think a lot? I don't think a lot about how my innards are absorbing stuff. It's kind of cool. It's like big sausage length tunnels in my tummy that are just like SpongeBob SquarePants absorbing nutrients, sending it where it's supposed to go. It's a good design. Those two sugar things can be easily absorbed in the bloodstream. However, you have to break that bad boy down. Break it down in order for them to actually get absorbed. If you don't break the lactose down into galactose and glucose, it's not going to get processed. The enzyme our body makes to break it down, again, is called lactase. And curiously, it is the only enzyme our body makes to break down lactose. It also turns out that this digestive enzyme is coded as far down as our base DNA. In chromosome strand number 2, it is coded whether or not and to what degree a person produces lactase. Specifically, lactase is located on the wall of the small intestine, and to have it long term is actually technically a mutation. Originally, in our genetic code, is designed as such that we will actually stop producing the lactase enzyme after infancy. Once we are weaned, when we stop nursing, our bodies sense that change in diet, and with dwindling need for lactase to break down lactose compounds comes dwindling production of the enzyme. When humans and other mammals are born, they have high levels of lactase production. Infants who cannot take milk often have a genetic mutation impacting their lactase, which in turn cannot break down the lactose. The chemical lactase was first discovered and written about by a British scientist named R.H. Aders Plymmer, who wrote of this discovery in a piece called, quote, "On the presence of lactase in the intestine of animals and on the adaptation of the intestine to lactose." I wonder what the read was about. They say not to judge a book by its title, but it's kind of hard to when the title is what the exact thing is about. Lactase was found in 1906 in the intestines of young infant dogs, pigs, and rats. He discovered in his work, R.H. Aders Plymmer, that the amount of the enzyme actually diminished over time. As the pigs, dogs, and rats got older, the amount of lactase in their intestines decreased. This was the result of his finding. Quote, "Since, however, the pancreas never at any time in the life of an animal contains lactase," something they believe possible because the pancreas is credited with breaking down sugar and producing insulin, whereas the intestines of, at any rate, young animals contain this sugar, this ferment, while those of adult animals in many cases have lost their power of hydrolyzing lactose. Adaptation of this organ might be reasonable, expected to occur when animals are subjected to this stimulus by feeding. Or, to put it in non-dweeb speak, whatever's producing lactase didn't come from the pancreas. It seems to come from the intestine itself, and you can spur it on, and it can be produced by exposure to lactose. A person who doesn't have lactase producing mutation beyond weaning, which is a striation, I might add, is known colloquially as lactose intolerance. That is, their body does not tolerate lactose. More accurately, one would say that they are lactase deficient because they do not produce lactase or enough to break down the lactose. You've heard people say, humans are the only animals that drink milk past infancy, and they might very well be the only mammals who drink another mammal's milk. It's wild. I think it's also inaccurate. I know people put out saucers of milk for cats or whatever. I'm pretty sure that other animals do this too. But in the people who cannot tolerate it, it seems that their bodies just didn't mutate and went the natural course. They quit producing the enzyme because naturally the enzyme isn't needed anymore. We're on to meat and taters, not milky. Lactose intolerance, though, was written back as far back as Hippocrates in about 500 BC. It wasn't until the 1970s that they studied and understood human genes and gene mutations to be able to identify this mutation in people. In 1978, a breath hydrogen test was devised that supposedly could determine lactose intolerance in a person. I'm surprised they haven't made money off this idea. You go into an ice cream shop. Bear with me. You wander yourself into an ice cream shop. It's hot outside. You're looking for a frozen dairy delicious treat. And you walk up to the counter, and they have moo cow breathalyzers. to tell if your tummy is going to wage war against you if you slurp down your delicious dairy treat. You blow a bad test, you could get like 10 to 20% off a dairy-free option. Ice cream places, TM, TM, TM. The moo cow breathalyzer idea. Shout at me, privycast@gmail.com. We'll make it happen. Making it happen out here. You know where the vibes are at. Should be noted, a person can just have low levels of lactase and be totally fine and not even notice trouble digesting lactose. Lactose intolerance only occurs when lactase levels get too low and those milk sugars aren't busted down at all. The colon and small intestine cannot absorb them, and in the presence of, a closed environment, those unabsorbed portions must go somewhere. Usually, they take the southbound train to Porcelain Town, or in the worst cases, it goes yakko reverso, big skeet reverso, and comes back up. Common symptoms of lactose intolerance include, and often keep you on the bathroom, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, and gas. All things which can keep you in the bathroom for the afternoon, I might add. Lactose can be scary. And I wonder if the National Dairy Association has any sort of statement or anything to say in regards to those who can't eat or drink dairy for fear of pooping themselves really badly. What's worse is you're more likely to develop lactose intolerance as you get older. In other words, when you get older, you can make adult decisions related specifically to how much delicious cheese and dairy you can eat. And that is precisely the time when your body is going to start to fight you about the dairy you consume. You can't win. There's a number of products that you can consume to help you be able to consume dairy to treat the dangerous results of it. One thing which is challenging to say regarding lactose intolerance during National Dairy Month is this. You're probably just better off avoiding it. I think it works like this. Your lactose intolerance is directly related to how willing you will be to give up dairy. If you poo yourself bad enough, you'll give up milk and cheese. If you sling cookies hard enough, you'll back off the ice cream. When you round off hour 2 of your second bathroom trip, you'll rethink the 3 slices of cheese pizza. Or you'll embrace the pain. The trouble lactose intolerance gives you, I think, is the self-selective nature of it. Just don't eat the cheese. Don't drink the milkshake. Say no to the cereal with regular milk. You have to be ready for age and other aspects to catch up to you, because it will. That brings me to a hunter's anecdotes to keep you afloat. This hunter's anecdotes is called Pizza Betrayal. Now, before we begin this, I should say, I'm not lactose intolerant. I'm not. Anybody that says I am is a bald-faced liar. However, I'm getting old. In high school, my buddies and I would regularly round off our evening with a trip to Little Caesars. And at Little Caesars, we would, you get the $5 hot and ready. I know they don't have $5 anymore. This was back in the day. $5 hot and ready. Everybody gets a large pepperoni pizza. It's all yours. And no lie, we were easily polishing off our personal large pepperoni pizza in a couple hours. You eat 3 slices on the way home, eat a couple slices while you're hanging out, eat a couple slices at midnight, and you're done. Like, it's easy to house a whole pizza. It's not hard. And we used to do this with no consequences, I might add. Like, 0 consequences whatsoever. And then you'd wake up and just pound milk, cereal and milk, milkshakes. Big gnarly smoothie just packed full of yogis. Like, we were dairy boys. And then I went to college And I still live the dairy lifestyle pretty aggressively. When I had food court food, I would get the pizza regularly. It was one of the best things that they serve. You could have as much of it as you want. And there were like 4 or 5 slice days. Wrap one up in a paper towel, sneak it out of the cafeteria in your backpack. You have a snack for later. We were dairy boys. The number of cheese quesadillas my roommates, Travis, former guest on the show, friend of the show, Travis Ruin, and Chad and I would have was unmatched. Just countless cheese quesadillas. And I lived that. And then I took a job working in youth ministry. And I don't know if you know this, but like youth ministry, you buy pizza and you eat pizza very regularly. I don't really buy pizza for my family because I can just access pizza pretty much anytime. It's pretty great. And I would, like when I first started, it would, again, we're polishing off 4 slices of pepperoni just to round off the evening. It's nothing to it. And then it happened. Like, I don't know what point. It was sometime around the age of 30. But I was at a youth function and I snarshed down like boom, boom, 2 slices of Costco pizza. It was delicious. I'm going to go for 3. And I was betrayed by that 3rd slice. I was betrayed by my aged bowels and my tummy's inability to keep up with the lactose I had introduced. I had diarrhea. I pooped myself really hard. Yeah. The truth is, once you hit age 30, half a pizza is a young man's game. Your pizza consumption has to decrease. And you're lying to yourself if you're like, oh, I can eat as much pizza as I did when I was in high school. You probably can, but you will have different bodily consequences for doing so. It's just facts. This has been another Hunter's Anecdotes to keep you afloat. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Privy. Happy National Dairy Month again. Follow Privy on social media. We're at PrivyCast on all of your social media. Join us on the Facebook group, the Little Stinkers Privy Facebook group. We got all sorts of bathroom things, memes, stuff going over there. Share stuff there. We would love that. We would love for you to leave the show a rating and review. The 5-star options are preferred. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. And every rating and review you leave will leave a donation to Wounded Warriors and Living Water International as a reminder to keep pooping in the free world. This free world was not always free. And in pursuit of cleaner water for all, everyone should have it, but not everybody does. Check out the website, privy-cast.com. We got a store. You can click the little store link at the top and go check out some of our PrivyCast merch. Like I said last time, we've got some cool Keep Pooping in the Free World t-shirts that are just in time for the 4th of July. Would love to see you repping those. And if you do, you can tag us at PrivyCast. We would love to see that. Thank you to Kevin Poddington and anyone else's music that we used. You can see the music we used in the description down below. This brings us to the end of another episode of Privy. Keep pooping in the free world. Own your stank. Snarsh down the dairy, unless your tummy's not going to be able to handle it. And now, as always, don't forget to flush.